Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we begin a 5-day program on artificial intelligence, arguably one of the most consequential issues confronting humanity in our world today. You know, it's very easy as we get preoccupied day by day with whatever's going on in the headlines, whether it's the war in Gaza or Ukraine or various other world events, to lose track of some of the major issues which, if not solved soon, will have deleterious impacts in all kinds of ways on the future development of human society. It was Yuval Harari, the great Israeli commentator and author of Sapiens and Homo Deus and 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, in his book Sapiens, where he said that the development of artificial intelligence is, in his view, the most consequential development in the history of the human race, because it marks that moment when biological intelligence, us, projected onto machines, silicon, and intelligence that rivals biological intelligence. And the implications of that are quite literally, currently even, beyond the capacity of most humans to fully understand. And so we're in a world where there is radically positive imaginings about a future with AI and imaginings of a hellish world, a dystopian world, because of AI. And so the entire technical community, the political community in the world, whether it's in Asia with China, whether it's in Europe with the EU and the United States, many of the world international organizations are grappling with what to do with AI. In one way, the genie's out of the bottle, but in another way, if that genie is not shaped and regulated with clear ethical and political processes and constraints, the creator may find ourselves enslaved by the created. And I think that's both the promise and the danger of artificial intelligence. So at Humanity Rising, as all of you know, we deal with the code red issues as they arise, whether it's climate change, war, mental health, and now AI. So I'm delighted to welcome my good friend and colleague, Tom Eddington and Georg Bach, who are jointly convening this week as a series that we began some months ago. We'll have it this week. But the issue of the challenges of artificial intelligence are urgently real for the world community. So Humanity Rising will pay very close attention to unfolding events. So Tom, I want to welcome you to the program and turn the mic over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. It's great to be here again this week, and it feels like the sequencing of the conversations last week on conscious leadership and this week on artificial intelligence, that the timing was well orchestrated. So thank you for making that happen. As Jim mentioned, we had a week on artificial intelligence a couple of months ago, and in that conversation, we were grappling with ethics we were grappling with human psychology. We were grappling with some of the issues around the introduction of artificial intelligence. This week, we want to focus on artificial intelligence literacy. All of us as human beings, we've seen what's happened when AI was integrated with social media and how it's contributed to the global epidemic of youth anxiety, depression, and suicide. And there are lots of unintended consequences. With the further development of artificial intelligence, we're seeing whether it's Microsoft or Meta or Google or Amazon investing into organizations billions and billions of dollars for artificial intelligence. And yet they haven't addressed ethics. They haven't addressed compassion. They haven't addressed what is their business model. But clearly they're driven by motivation. They're driven by money. And they will be developing business models that must include ethics, must include compassion, must include this question of how does humanity and all sentient beings on planet Earth, carbon beings, coexist with silicon beings? And those questions aren't being asked by the companies that are developing the technology, by our political leaders. They're asking questions, but they're the wrong questions that are being asked. And so and I'm excited to be collaborating with Georg over the last 6 months or so, as well as our panelists on Friday, Griffin Deleuze, to ask these questions and make sure that what gets put in place with AI, that all of humanity is included, that all of humanity is not harmed by the technology, and that it can coexist and be of service to and support the evolution of human consciousness and the human species. So with those opening comments, I'll invite Georg into the conversation. And Georg, it's just a delight putting this panel together with you this week. And I think we've done a great job of helping provide an opportunity for the viewers of Humanity Rising to become more literate on this critical issue.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jim, for this great introduction to this vast subject. And because it is so vast, we settled on the idea that it would be great to try to do an entire week and speak about the most important issues as they pertain to AI. Not just repeating the marketing hype that jumps at us, not just kind of riff off the sensationalism that is being replicated even by highbrow media like the Washington Post, right? But actually go to the essence of what this technology offers as a promise. Let me see if I can make myself full time here. And the funny thing is, what we forget in this entire AI debate is this all started around 12 months ago for the general public. The people that I have here today, they have been dealing with AI for a much longer period. They saw this coming further down the road, but myself included, I was shocked when I saw how far we were 12 months ago when OpenAI just released this little bot, ChatGPT, and all of a sudden computers were making sense. Just 12 months later, now, OpenAI has this function on iOS where you can have a conversation with the AI. So you can just speak to it naturally, and it talks back to you in a very natural voice. And I gotta tell you guys, when I did that the other night, I had this shocking experience. It was almost like an altered state where I had this conversation with the AI, actually researching this week, and it was just profoundly intelligent. I felt profoundly understood. in this conversation, like I would never have been by a computer. It was so thoughtful. It was so paying so much attention to what I was saying. And after this conversation, I felt as if I had spoken to a real person. You know, like my brain couldn't really compute what had just happened. Somehow we're like biologically wired to feel the benefits of social interaction, even though we know that we just spoken to a model of intelligence, not the right thing, the real thing. So as we dive into this week, my goal for this week is that at the end of it, we're better equipped to grapple with these confounding new realities that AI puts into our life, as it pertains to the future of work, the future of ethical judgment, the future of medicine, the future of what it means to be human. And so to get us all started here, I would love to now introduce our wonderful panelists for today. Today, I'm super excited that I'm joined by Samina Ahmad. She is the CEO and founder of Shades in Contrast. She is an expert when it comes to discrimination-free algorithms in AI. Her career spans over 15 years. She's worked on data analysis, product management, innovation for different industries. But what really, I think, excited me when I saw her post on LinkedIn is that she focuses on the problems of AI bias in AI ethics. She was also awarded with the Digital Female Leader Awards 2023 and consults for the German public institutions on AI bias in AI ethics. Furthermore, we're joined by Bart de Wit. Bart de Wit is the founder of AI foundation called Hippo AI, which is a fun play on the Hippocratic Oath and also the animal hippo. He is also a social entrepreneur with a great background in working in tech. He's a distinguished expert in digital transformation and healthcare in Europe. He is a speaker that is invited all over the place. I think he even spoke at the UN a few weeks ago on the subject matter. What fascinated me when I spoke to him was that he doesn't just underline the problems that we have with the current setup, the way AI is being regulated when it comes to medicine and the common good, but he also offers a new framework of thinking about the way AI could be in our world. And then, lastly, we're also joined by John Illett-Raber, who is known to the Humanity Rising community because he is the founder of the Sign Network. He is an American entrepreneur, a civic leader, an inventor, a musician with a rich history and experience in the field of technology, but also humanitarian work, including the Compassion Games and One World. So to kick us off, hi John, hi Samina, hi Bart, it's great to meet you finally here all together. So to kick us off, I would just start with you guys. What has it been like this week in AI for you? What is your, if you would do this be kind of an encounter group and we would kind of check in with each other? How has this year been for you guys in terms of all the news, all the stuff to keep up with? How are you feeling about what's happening right now? Popcorn style, whoever wants to go first, just go for it. Samina, Bart?
Okay,
go ahead.
I'm taking the word. Thank you for having me. Great pleasure, George. We talked about this event since a while to be here finally, and we have tomorrow another session. This year has been extremely tough in orders to keep up with the pace of everything that has been happening. I've been working on machine learning projects since 2009. The speed that we have seen this year is incredible. There's been so many developments that it's really hard to keep up. I'm focused on open source AI in that space. We have seen incredible developments. But the most thing that triggered me this year is the war that I call it the Cold War that relates to the power of AI that is becoming so political that political leaders are building walls or trying to build walls around innovation in order to create what I call geopolitical power. The whole road to AI supremacy and connecting this to the power that is connected to that vision or dream, or perhaps even if it's a reality of artificial general intelligence, to grasp that power the first and be the first one to have that power, and the fight that political or countries are having at the moment, talking about regulations, is that what keeps me busy most, because we are missing a great opportunity here to look at the developments of something that we can do together instead of competing with each other. I don't believe that competing with each other towards a road to supremacy is going to lead to anything good. I think it's a zero-sum game. So I think we are confronted with two options: is that, or we're going to start opening and collaborating more, or we're going to compete. And if we start competing on a geopolitical level, then I'm afraid that not we're going to end up in some Terminator scenario, but we will see more and more walls being built around these innovations that will slow down perhaps, or will even create asymmetries that will be used for power games. Just to make that a bit more visible to the audience, or what I mean with these walls, that well, we all have heard that there have been export bans around NVIDIA chips, so China doesn't get access to these export bans. But to take that one level further, there have been lawmakers in the US that try to stop corporates collaborating on open source collaborations, foundations, to build together open standards. And I'm talking about RISC-V chip architectures. There have been now laws being put in place where a Dutch company, which is called ASML, which is the company that produced the machines that produce all these chips, has undergone so much pressure that they cannot export anymore to China. So it's all about these two powerful nations, China and the US, building up against each other. And I ask myself the question, where does this end? And nobody's asking that question. And I think that's what has been worrying me most this year: the hunger for power driven by politicians who don't really understand the potential when we would reverse our competition and turn everything upside down towards more collaboration and openness.
Thank you, Bart. This is very interesting, very timely.
So maybe from my point of view, what also is also going into the direction of Bart is that, I mean, for me and maybe for all the other experts in that field, data, AI, and so on, everything was a little bit a small circle, right? The last years. But you said 2009 you developed machine learning, and when you said 2009 machine learning, everybody was like, yeah, okay, data science, yeah, you do stuff and you do it in your corner there and so on. And now in the past year, since ChatGPT, everything is now having so much public attention regarding AI, and this is one side of it is very good, because we have people now talking about the topic, getting information about it, but also there's a high increasement about disinformation also, because you cannot be an expert in machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning, all these subfields and all these methods which are used in AI. And also the credibility about the expertise when people are talking about AI has decreased a little bit, in my opinion, because now everyone is pushing in that field. Either you are, I don't know, one person who claims now, okay, that is an algorithm, but not an AI algorithm, then you don't know what is the person talking about. So knowledge, expertise, and so on has not so increased, but the public attention on that field. And that makes communication, discussion very hard, because you actually don't know what is the definition, what is the background of the person, what is driving this person. And motivators and driving things also has increased in terms of aspects. So you see a lot of people, they are maybe afraid of AI, afraid of losing jobs. This also comes to public attention more than before. Companies are afraid of not keeping up with the competition if they do not invest in AI. And political institutions, especially in Germany, where I'm based, they missed the chance to digitalize very many things. And now they're even talking about AI, developing AI, but they do not have data, for example, data sources. So for me, that's very hard to keep up with these jumping topics. But all of these topics are in the public attention, and this changed very much since ChatGPT.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Samina. I'm hearing this. I'm feeling that you guys experience a similar cognitive dissonance that I have, and so my reaction was, if only we would have a common ground to discuss. If only we knew where we are in AI right now. And then I looked into the experts, Jan LeCun and Jeffrey Hinton, supposedly the people who were foundational in developing modern AI. And then I was really shocked to see that even those guys can't agree on if the AI actually understands what it's talking about, if it builds its internal world model, or if it's just deep faking this understanding. And yeah, if you see that the people who are building the technology themselves are kind of not agreeing, it's difficult for the rest of the hive to agree. John, I see you reacting like...
Yeah. No, that's why I was so happy that you used the term literacy for this week's program. I think the truth is we don't really know what we're dealing with here. Fernand Braudel, the French historian, said that all development is driven by changes in the limits of the possible in the structures of everyday life. And for me, this is, we call it the Etch-a-Sketch moment. I don't know if you guys know what an Etch-a-Sketch is, but when I was a kid, there was a toy you could draw and then you could shake and everything would start all over again. The implications of what we're capable of creating with AI is beyond our understanding at this point. And we need to be humble and go through a period of learning together. In fact, I woke up this morning, said, you know what we should do? Because you mentioned what the last week has happened. Well, we should create an HR GBT, taking everything that Stan has been doing for all this time and create a little bot that could have anyone who's watching Humanity Rising be a guide to say, okay, this is a topic that interests me. Give me every other HR session that's happened. I just use this as an example of what we're capable of now doing. And I know that the best learning happens by doing. And I've been exploring, and we have been as a community, the implications of how for instance, we should be turning on the AI here in Zoom. Zoom is doing amazing things to be able to get excerpts. They turn them into smart chapters from recordings that have happened. We have a huge opportunity to uplift what we're doing together here in Humanity Rising by exploring and integrating the potential, evolving our potential using AI in creative ways. The thing that I'm so excited about is unleashing our creative imagination together to actually go after our dreams, knowing that we have a unique kind of partner in it that we've never seen before. The integration of the intelligence of the world to be available to each of us and all of us in new and creative ways. We need a pause to be able to say, hey, let's explore and learn by doing together.
John, maybe building on that for a moment in the context of AI literacy, let's start with AI. Is it artificial intelligence? Is it access to information? Is it augmented intelligence? Is it some kind of authoritarian intervention? What is AI really?
Yeah,
I mean, the spirit, the intention behind the development of AI. And I know it's all of those things, but what?
Right. And so much of this has to do with the challenges of language, how it conceals and reveals to us. I wrote a paper that says AI doesn't care. You do. And I think that we need to use this moment to explore, what are we really talking about here? There's no sentient being there. These are algorithms that are very powerfully taking all the data in a way we've never conceived of to make accessible to us in ways we've never even imagined. But I don't for one second believe, and I've had enough conversations with people. In fact, Jim and I, when we first started out, he said, no, I believe it's conscious. There's no conscience there. But what we can do with it, that gets really interesting to me. We can be more humane because it's a different role for us. I have a new problem. I don't want to put out something that I haven't put through ChatGPT. I no longer think my own capability is as good as when it's augmented with that capability. And I think it's kind of coming to terms with it. It's realizing, oh my gosh, if I just kind of peek and say, hey, I'm about to send this out, could you give me a revised draft, how you would do it? Almost every time it comes back with something I consider to be better than what I would have done. And how many of us really experiencing that who've used this? There's this whole new thing about how do I ethically, responsibly communicate to people that I'm using this tool in a way that I'm still responsible for my words and deeds. But at the same time, I want to put the best work product I can put forward. And shame on us if we don't have enough wisdom to say, let's use the best tools we can, given the urgency of the problems in the world right now. I think we can make a better world with AI, but it's not AI that's going to make that world. It's going to have to be you and me augmented. And that's my view. I'm curious to hear what others have to say.
Yeah, please, Bart, Zabina, please jump in.
Yes, I thank you, John, for bringing it in. I agree with most of the things you said, but one thing I want to step back in before we start creating that symbiosis between AI and humanity is questioning the foundation we are building AI on, and that's the question that I've been addressing. I work in healthcare. I've worked 20 years in health technology. Healthcare can benefit greatly from an information technology that suddenly scales expert knowledge across the globe. But the foundation we are building it on today is existing on extractivism, capturing. It is turning common knowledge into what we call in economics intangible goods, creating exclusivity using intellectual property around these assets, and probably creating a foundation that will just duplicate our world in just as an unequal world as we have seen in the healthcare today. And that is the question that I've been trying to address and trying to solve. And there is a sociologist here in Germany called Armin Nasehi, and he simplified digitalization with the duplication of the world through data. But if you duplicate the world through data, you also duplicate norms, values, and principles. And we don't agree on these norms, values, and principles. These are very cultural elements that in Europe, when you think about healthcare, our values are described in our fundamental rights in Article 35 that everybody has access to healthcare. That's a right that US citizens don't have. So when we start building AI systems based on a values system, and in the US it's very market driven, then I question, should we follow this in Europe? Because we probably would transgress our values, norms, and principles to a system that is alienated from, or alienates me when I talk about getting access to healthcare. And I think before we start using all these systems and start making perhaps similar mistakes as we did with social media, which changed the social fabric of society, we should ask ourselves, like, what is the foundation? And then we come to the questions like, is data something we can capitalize? Is it a common good? Is AI a general purpose technology that should be a common good? Or is that an intangible asset that people can increase in value when the demand goes up? And I think as long as we don't understand these basics or agree on these basics, we will not align in the development.
That's Samina, yeah.
There's so much content, and you can say so many things to this, what you both just said. So it's hard to catch the most important point, but I think when we start today, imagine we start today to build an AI together in this round, then that might be maybe easy, because maybe we have the same values for humanity. But imagine this group gets bigger and there are different people from different nations. Are we really able to find that foundation and can build up this good AI system? Because I really doubt that we are, as humanity, global citizens, are at the moment looking at the political situations with all the crimes and wars going on. It's hard to find a common ground. And I think that is the most struggling part about AI and good AI. And then I come to another facet of it is when I think about good AI, I really think often about reducing bias, because now when we take the data which is out there, all the data is reflecting how we perceive the world, and we perceive it biased. Of course, every one of us has unconscious biases. And then I think, why don't we first find out how do we want to, like you also said, copy the world? How do we reflect the world in the data set? Then find out what questions do we have, and find out if we find same answers. But same answers is still very hard part as a global community.
I think that's the most promising possibility. Look what we're saying. Look at the potential here. If we said time out, let's do a values clarification here. What is really important to us? And I believe we have a lot more in common than we realize. I think everybody knows that all killing is a betrayal of our Creator. I think all of us, even though, Bart, it's true about the way the US medical system works, but everyone knows that health is a human right. I think instinctively there's a moral conscience that transcends these boxes we're in, that we've grown up in. And this is a potential moment to get clear. I mean, right away, we've identified that the real problem with AI is people.
Oh,
Probably, yeah.
The AI is fine. And it's us that haven't figured out how to live with each other, yet alone with AI. And what a great opportunity here.
Maybe there's a nice book, Scary Smart, from Mo Gadwat. Yeah, and I really liked his outline because he said AI is so smart, we will be impressed by it. So I think we are at the stage. Then he said something bad will happen because maybe we cannot predict what AI is capable of. And then in the end, he said, we as humanity, we have so many good values. We are able to take that bad happening and turn it into something good. And when you look back into the history, I think that's very much true for us as, yeah.
And John, I agree with that people, AI is good, but like the problem is people. I would extend this with the problem is power and connected to people. I've been running a nonprofit foundation, and my goal is really to turn medical AI into a common good by open sourcing it. But I realize that this altruistic view on building AI is what 99% of the people out there is not what they're following up on, because the incentives on the financial markets, the incentives that are out there are very different. And we have been working on a framework where we're going to publish our first papers beginning this year, which is called Regenerative AI, which comes from regenerative economy, where we have defined a set of principles where AI systems and data ecosystems by the application can regenerate the economy in that sense and destroy asymmetries, which are information asymmetries always lead to these power asymmetries and power distributions in that sense. And I think that sort of substantial work to really find a foundation with a set of principles where we disseminate it from power and I think that's what we need to do, is take the power out. Not humans. I believe in the good of humans. Humans are mostly more connected to each other as each from us is connected to a political leadership. And if I would talk to a Chinese researcher, then I'm really closer connected than each of us is to our own government. And I think these sort of collaborations by creating open networks is something that we need to push way beyond what we're doing today. I think Maria Montessori told, if we educate our children for collaboration instead of competing, that's the moment we are building for peace. And with power and collaboration and giving that power to humanity as a common good, I think we can do this and we can achieve this. But then we need to work totally averse to the incentives which are out there today. The current trend is really capturing. The current trend is not even aligning with actual copyright laws. You can call it theft. And then what OpenAI did is like really taking everything what is out there and then publishing a paper with no disclosure of anything what they have been doing, and then creating this huge power asymmetry in a dark system embedded in a surveillance capitalistic economical model. I don't think this is the right foundation to start building this. And I think we need to, as humans work together with perhaps without our governments, but that's what open source, which is what's driving me always, has been doing. Open source is not driven by institutions. Open source is driven by people.
Samina, you have worked with institutions and helped raise their awareness on the importance of their data and also the pitfalls that they could kind of fall into when they try to integrate algorithms and AI, right? What is your perspective on what people need to understand about the way AI and these algorithms work? in this conversation?
So my focus is very much to create fair AI, right? And when you talk about fairness, you have to ask yourself first, what is the goal, what you are implementing? So what algorithm are you using for which use case? And when you know the goal, you can also define what fairness is in that case. So, for example, fairness for health treatment is very much different than fairness for salary predictions, for example, because of course salaries depend on the level of experience, and health treatment maybe is different from demographical data. So from there you can define what fairness is, and then the pitfalls for me in AI development, there are always 3 points where I look deeper into it. The first one is, what is the data source? Is the data good? Is the data, biased? Is it representative? So where does the data come from? So it all starts with that point. And I think also that we as human community, we need to take care about what also Bart mentioned was an open source data pool, maybe where we say, okay, we agreed upon that here in that data source, it's a very good reflection for this and that use case. So that's the first point, data. Then the second point is where you can also have pitfalls, and you need to be aware is what model are you training and testing, because different models generate different outputs, and it's very good investment if you compare the outputs, the decision making, because the decisions can be very different. And then the third part, and that's also about us humans, is how do we interact with that AI? Because our interaction is feedback for that AI to learn and be better. And that feedback can be also then go into some directions, but we need to take care about how do we interact with that AI, and what does it learn about it, and in what direction does it develop itself.
Right. This is out of my life. I have my kids talking to Siri all the time, and they're like, I'm saying, be nice to Siri. Don't scream at Siri. You don't know what's going to happen if you treat Siri like your friend. And I'm asking myself, we're back to AI literacy, what kind of, my daughters are 5 and 3, right? So like the question is, what values do we want to instill about this new otherness that is in our lives, and that will just become more and more convincing simulation of a subjectivity that isn't really there, right? Yeah. So John, you feel you seem triggered.
Well, I think it's part of the newness of this. I was with David Hansen and Sophia and the robotics, and people talking to these kind of devices. It's still very awkward and new to us. Prompting in Chat GPT, learning how to do that, what you're expecting back. And I want to acknowledge something we've done as a team, many of us here. We just went through a program on radical collaboration by teaming up with Dr. Tamsin Woolley-Barker, who's been on Humanity Rising. And one of the challenges we saw is that the situations we're in are caused by the patterns, and the patterns are caused by the relationships. But if we change our relationships, we can change our patterns, and then we can have a new situation. So the concern you're putting forward, I'm convinced that we could actually support you and embrace the value of making sure that healthcare is something that's open, just like you're talking about. Here in Seattle, the Allen Institute is all about open, having open source at these models. But we even ourselves need to learn how to think and talk about these things. That's why I want to go back to just what OpenAI announced last week. Everybody can create their own GBTs right now. So like Chat GPT, And you don't have to be a developer. I'm convinced we can learn a ton by creating a GBT that would be an advisor to someone who came to Humanity Rising. Because Stan has done such amazing work. So let's just be clear what this means. We would teach the common model, the GBT model, everything about it, Humanity Rising that's happened up until now. Stan has been doing this. And we together can experience what it is to have such a resource while we're engaging in the sessions on Humanity Rising, to be able to reference other people who've spoken in the past. Not just that, but actions we could take in support of those people who are putting solutions forward. Just like you, Bart, and just like you, Zamina. I would love that the enhanced capability that AI would bring us would be to actually empower the kind of solutions you're putting forward. That's a new relationship to create new kinds of patterns. Instead of just watching, I know Jim and I know the folks behind Ubiquity want HR, Humanity Rising, not just to be a passive show that we're just all getting informed about, but that actually we're rising together. And I think AI gives us a partner in this process. I call it a thinking and doing partner. And for people who don't understand this generative idea of AI, up until now, we love searching on the internet. But now this stuff actually makes stuff for us. We can actually, if we know how to ask for it, say, hey, what we want is a strategy for how to make sure that the health world doesn't get used by the old incentive pattern that you're talking about, Bart. In America, we're all stuck. We're all underneath these structures that are patterns. They're just old patterns. We need to change them and let humanity rise and our values drive us, and not let these corporate structures or the economic structures or political structures that we've grown up in to continue to be the future. They don't have to be.
No, I totally agree that they don't have to be, but as you mentioned, everybody can build now a GPT. I would then ask, like, is that GPT from OpenAI? Because then I would tell that, or disagree, because we would train something that we don't own. And then we need to discuss who owns then GPT. Is that an intangible good that is privatized by one single company, where we don't have any transparency on these things? And I truly believe in Europe that our regulators were, when they talk about regulating AI and regulating social media, are trustworthy organizations in that sense. But I learned now in the last 12 months that even with the power of AI, that the hunger for that power and their power in that sense is so high that I've seen abuse. Right? There was a very probably infamous case now where there was a EU group that wants to get access to all messaging services and get a backdoor access to encryption under the title of chat control and child pornography abuse. And now recently they found out that the European Commission was micro-targeting only an amount of the European population to change their behavior or change their mindset on that proposed law. So they were using algorithms to change the public opinion on Twitter, the Commission. So those who are actually regulating and should be regulating AI for good are using that for their own power. And that scares the hell out of me if I see that a regulatory body starts abusing that power for themselves in order to change laws. And luckily that came out because one of their own acts, the Digital Service Act, mandates that social media platforms need to create a transparency report on all the advertisements bought. And it was a researcher from Holland that found out that the European Commission actually started that campaign. So their own laws on transparency made visible that they were abusing these platforms for micro-targeting only a part of the population. And that's really scary. If you see your government abusing that technology, I lose trust in regulatory bodies.
And Bart, maybe building off of that and taking the conversation slightly in a different direction. When I when I look at the human brain, we're not capable of understanding exponential growth. We've seen it with climate change. We saw it with COVID-19, and AI is exponential growth. And how big of a fear is that? How big of a concern? And how do we address that? And I'll ask that to all three of you.
I think that's what augmented selves need, is something in the room that can think in ways that we're not capable of thinking, to understand the dimensions of what's here. Bart, we're under a spell. The indigenous world knows it. It's wetiko. If you don't know this term, it's worth knowing, because you see, you keep coming back to the real problem. It's trust. It's how we relate to each other as human beings, how we create structures. But it's hard when we're all under this spell and have been swept along into ways of operating. It's like Otto Scharmer says, we're very well organized to produce results that nobody wants. And I think we all know that. You know, I say cease blaming. How do we get beyond assigning blame to these problems and actually evolve our potential? That's a shift. That's what Dr. Donella Meadows talks about when it comes to systems changes, our paradigmatic ways of thinking about these things. So beyond extracting value or arresting disorder or doing good is evolving potential. That's why, Tom, I think having the capacity to think so dimensionally and to see exponentially gives us a new kind of resource that we just don't know how to use. We're so new to this.
I want to give, and thank you, Tom, for bringing that exponentiality in there. I want to give a bit of a different angle where exponentially is turning into something good, because exponentially is also going on the hardware layer. And today you can buy an ARM based Orange Pi 5 billion parameter chip that you can buy. It's an open source hardware. You can have an open source accelerator. You can have an open source large language model that run completely disconnected from the cloud and can create an assistant, an augmentation, because of that exponentiality that is so powerful that you don't need these cloud servers anymore in order to get access to that AI system. So exponentially, or the exponentiality leads as well to a decentralization, because a lot of these models will be able to run on very localized hardware. And that for me is a huge promise, because I think then we can disconnect it from that surveillance architecture.
I think what we see with that growth also that we are not really capable of understanding is that how do we react as humans when we are not understanding something? We usually react with fear, right? So we try to avoid it, try to not let it happen, and so on. And I think that's what we already see. And also, we are not able to predict what happens with AI developments. And that's also the reason why we are shouting now or screaming out for regulations, for AI ethics, because then we really need that basic values inside them, because we are really not capable to understand and predict what can actually all happen. And I think that's very important, because that's the only thing where I see we really address that this topic has exponential growth, but do we really address it? For me, only in that regulation part.
You know, it's
in the
just
sense that we don't address the exponential potentials that we have, the exponential potential of every child within the next 2 years having a personal tutor that can help them find their unique pattern of intelligence and help them train. To me, that is just the lowest hanging fruit if you just play around a little bit with GPT-4 and what it can do to help you understand things, to grasp concepts, it is quite astounding.
Yeah. You know, Saul Kahn did a TED talk recently, exactly what you're talking about, where he showed the power of now there being, he calls it Kanamigo, a personal tutor for every kid and a teaching assistant for every teacher. And he showed this graph from, I forget Bloom's first name, but who showed what an incredible impact it would have if a kid had a personal tutor. But at the time that they did that, they realized, well, that was just not possible because we didn't have the number of people who were trained to do it. And his point, now we do. And he showed how that Conamigo's tutor does not give the kid the answer, but has an insight to see where they may be stuck. I mean, it's a recent TED talk. I'll put the link in the chat, and it brought everyone to cheering. Oh my God, what we could do for our kids and what we could do to support our teachers and what we could do for ourselves to take on the fear that you're talking about, the greed that we're talking about. I think AI is so disruptive that it requires this kind of pause. And just like we're doing here, taking a week to become literate in this, we could start to show examples of how humanity is rising with this kind of resource within our reach.
One last comment on the literacy. I recently had a discussion with a lot of physicians in terms of what is literacy. Is literacy being able to read a book, or is it being able to write a book? And when you look at an AI development, is there literacy for physicians, teaching them how to build their own AI models, or teaching them how to become a user of these AI systems and live in symbiosis with these systems? So I personally I'm an early adopter on technology and a late adopter on family planning. So I'm 50 and I have 2 small kids. And I'm teaching them now to, like very early days, to start building these things as well. And I really want them to be creators of their own future. And that means that they need deep understanding of technology. I don't want them to become, my biggest fear is that they become consumers, because the technology is so powerful, and without deeper understanding on how to build these things, they're mainly going to be in this asymmetric power relationship. And I saw somebody quoting Brian Wilson before, and he also mentioned that humans have Paleolithic emotions, which are we are very hackable systems, or humans. But literacy for me means, closing this, is really being able to write your own stories and to write your own books. And that means that you need to give people the power to get access to these tools and build their own AI systems and assistants.
A simple answer to literacy is you can make a promise and deliver it. When you're literate to do something, I can promise and fulfill that promise.
Right. This is spot on what you guys are saying. This is exactly the sentiment I had when I thought we should speak more about this activity, this competency of not just judging all the different headlines we see about AI in the news, but also knowing what's behind this very alluring voice of ChatGPT-4 that speaks to you. Because if it's this convincing right now to me, what it will be like in a few years? Will it have superhuman persuasive abilities in either way? Right? Like, what are this to bring this also? We're approaching the full hour towards a conclusion. I think. What do you guys think would be some of the core skills that kids should learn in school about AI and AI literacy? I'm curious. I mean, what you said, Bart, with your kids, we should speak more about this. We should connect on that, because that's really something I'm also trying to figure out slowly on my side, how to frame this to them, how to communicate how this works, what it is, right?
Digital literacy. It's essential. And you're right. What's going to happen is that it's going to be more and more effective at persuading us. That's the issue of deep fakes that everyone's genuinely concerned about. But I think we're going to discover there isn't a tube connecting people's mouths to our ears. The reason why you had that experience is within your own nervous system. That was a perturbation, as Maturana would say. That experience you had, Jorge, where all of a sudden it created the experience for you that you were being heard and understood. That's real. And that's happening right now, even with me. It's no different. We're closed systems. So that's why Japanese men marry robots and have real love. This is part of the way and we don't really understand ourselves that way. It's like we listen to say, oh, that's not real. No, but it's real for me. And that's what really matters. Our own connection to our creator, ourselves, and each other. We have a new way of thinking here, new potential. We should make AI that helps us. And that means helping each other. And
right, I'm hearing that we have to really focus on what makes us uniquely human. What are the skills that can be rationalized? This is what Ubiquity University is all about. This is why this subject matter is so important to us, because it teases out all the reasons why an integral education that does not only develop rational thinking, but also all the other emotional, spiritual, critical ways of understanding the world becomes more and more important. Otherwise, we'll be swept away by the persuasive power.
I think for education for children, what is important is also reflecting our discussion, because what you need is a basic understanding, because the knowledge gives you the empowerment to decide, do I really want to share that click information about me? Do I really want to use that social media communication channel, for example? So I think basic understanding is very good and crucial. Then also what we also talked about is what are the real world application and what is the future? So how do we interact with AI and such applications in the future? So I think when we think about and talk about education, we need to integrate the current tooling, and it will change very fast in the upcoming years. And the last point, which I also had observed in our discussion, is ethical considerations. So what are our norms and values, and what is important for us as human society, and how can we reflect and see them critical, these real world applications out of AI? So I think these aspects which we also discussed here is much important for educational terms.
Yeah.
Just adding, perhaps, I think everybody's familiar with the 5 C's of the 21st century and learning, like the critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, and building character. But one thing that I what I do for myself is, if AI gives me more time, because it increases my productivity, asking the question, where do I spend that one time on? And that time spending on is in educating my children, and not outsourcing that to schools or others. They're probably privileged because I have quite some deep knowledge in that, but I've also been thinking, and Georg, we can talk about this, to create perhaps a YouTube channel on teaching parents how to teach their children to prepare for AI. And I think we need perhaps to increase the literacy for parents in how to deal with this. Like, you cannot outsource this to educational systems. You need to do that within the family environment or within the educational environment, because you have your family values that you want to put in there. And I think giving that time back that AI gives you to perhaps increase your human collaborations within your own family and starting to educate is perhaps the first good step.
Yeah, and this is extremely pertinent, because what are we doing if we put kids too early in the presence of these, they've been called emulects, right? These simulations of another person in an age where they are not able to distinguish, and they're being taught to expect infinite patience. They are not able to build their interrelational skills because they only have this supernatural oracle that they're learning with, right? What are you talked about family values. When we will have a conversation on Wednesday about folks from India who are preoccupied about the cultural values that these chatbots have and how they are sweeping in, how we're being potentially kind of equalized to a certain San Francisco vibe wokeness without even knowing it, just by interacting with these chatbots. So yes, we need these tutors, but at what age, and how do we onboard children into this new universe that we don't even understand ourselves, right? This is all
Right. No, that's why
good
that
stuff.
literacy, that's right. So I put a link to a chat, the bubbles of Babel, in the chat here, this idea of this kind of literacy that we all need. And certainly these new relationships with our kids, it's new possibility of how to augment that kind of learning that we're talking about. And the threats are real. It's like fire. This stuff could burn it all down or really warm the world in a way we haven't seen yet. So I totally get and honor the risks and the questions you're saying. With that said, I think the only way out is through. By that, I mean, let's learn by doing. Let's really challenge ourselves to put to our values first and put our humane capacity to be human beings. Let's open up that box. What does it mean to be more humane? And how do we break those patterns to create new relationships that are caring relationships? And how do we get better at caring for each other and being cared for and be more vulnerable and be more humane? That's where I'm headed. That's where I think a lot of us sense that's the space that AI is making possible. I drive a Tesla. It's taken me a while, but I've come to see that car's better at driving than I am, like it or not. When a rainstorm hit, I put it in autopilot. That was one of those turning moments for me. The trusting of these capabilities is a remarkable kind of scary space to go. But oh my gosh, what could we do with it and find a new place on the chessboard for us as humanity?
Yeah, maybe picking up on that, a question for all of us. I look at in terms of humanity's stage of development from a consciousness level, and we are acting like adolescents. Our level of consciousness is at the adolescent level, and many of the people who are developing the AI technology are neurodiverse. And so what you're asking, John, around the question of humanity, what does it mean to be human? There's a neurodiversity of the people developing the technology that their definition would be different than mine, would be different than many other people on the planet. And yet, both as an adolescent species or as a species that's in its adolescence, unleashing this incredible technology that's designed by people by and large that are have a neurodiversity to them, who needs to be asking those questions, and how do we ensure that those questions get asked and answered in the right way? And I pose that to all of you.
Maybe to come towards an end, I would like to pick up on this neurodiversity thing you brought up. Neurodiversity is a concept that is very often used in the US. It's a concept that's less common in Europe, I would argue. Tom, are we speaking about saying that somebody could be on the spectrum when you say neurodiversity, or do you mean people just with different cultural values? Could you kind of unpack that term a bit for us?
Yeah, I'm talking purely from a neuroscience perspective. When we use brain mapping technology to look at someone's brain and the neural wiring of their brain, how they operate in the world. So, mainstream media would call that on the spectrum, as opposed to talking about people who have different life experiences or cultural values or other ways of being. So I was referring specifically to the neurodiversity in terms of the neural wiring in an individual's brain.
Maybe perhaps to illustrate this, it was not planned at all that you brought up neurodiversity. The people that developed this technology, right? They're very specific intellects. You could call them geniuses. We're talking Jeffrey Hinton, we're talking Ilya Sutskever from OpenAI. They have what enables them to think in this manner that allows them to even conceive of these new architectures is because they see the universe in a very specific way, different than ours. What's happening now and why there has been this mainstream kind of framing of the Oppenheimer moment is that their unique perspective on reality is being amplified through this technology, just like we unleashed the atom. And today, when I was on YouTube, I found a short excerpt from a kind of bio documentary on the head scientist of OpenAI, Ilya Sutskever, who is just extremely articulate, but also has a unique perspective on reality. So I would like to finish this up, share a 1-minute clip of him speaking about his understanding of what technology is. And then after that, we can bring Jim back in and bring this to a conclusion. Let's do that. Thank you so much.
I feel that technology is a force of nature. I feel like there is a lot of similarity between technology and biological evolution. It is very easy to understand how biological evolution works. You have mutations, you have natural selections, you keep the good ones, the ones that survive. And just through this process, you're going to have huge complexity in your organisms. We cannot understand how the human body works because we understand evolution, but we understand the process more or less. And I think machine learning is in a similar state right now, especially deep learning. We have a very simple rule that takes the information from the data and puts it into the model. And we just keep repeating this process. And as a result of this process, the complexity from the data gets transferred into the complexity of the model. So the resulting model is really complex, and we don't really know exactly how it works. You need to investigate. But the algorithm that did it is very simple.
There's a lot to unpack there. What struck me is that for Ilya, who is his PhD father was Jeffrey Hinton. So he's in the lineage of the people who have made this possible. For him, technology is part of the evolution of complexity in a way of life. For him, the evolution of technology is very similar to the evolution of life. Unique perspective. I wouldn't share this perspective. That's his perspective. But it is formative for the billions of dollars that are being used to develop this technology. Jim, you've joined us. What are your conclusions after having listened to us for an hour babble about this?
Well, I almost have more questions than answered. It's one of these extraordinary phenomena where the deeper you go in, the less you know. And I think that's part, for me, of the challenge of AI. It's in some ways assaulting all our assumptions about what it means to be human, what it means to know something, what is life, what is consciousness. And we haven't even been able to answer it for ourselves. And all of a sudden, we've created this something that appears to be a mirror, but it's not human. It's almost like UFOs. It's something that's distinct from us, and yet can communicate with us and appears to be evolving independence from us. And so I just really want to thank all of you for this conversation. And just because I would love to honor John, our good friend and close partner from the beginning, I want to hear from Bart and Zamina their comment on his seminal article, which I read and we discussed, that AI doesn't feel.
Doesn't care.
Doesn't care.
You
Doesn't
do.
care.
Right.
You do. And I want to just probe that, because it strikes to the heart of how we're beginning to define AI. If AI is conscious and intelligent, does it have the capacity to develop on its own caring? Or is this something that it can't do and only humans really can care? And John's taken a very clear position. And I just would love to maybe, John, start with you to summarize your thesis, and then would love to hear from Bart and Zamina and even Tom and Georg about whether AI is capable of caring.
Yeah. Well, that's why I don't think it is. I think it's able to help us care for each other and provide insight and provide the kind of capacity that makes us more caring. But I don't believe AI cares. I don't think it's conscious. I don't think there's any there. It's just like the integrity of that engineer to explain. Just this simple process created something that we ourselves don't understand. And I think this is, now I'm willing to be wrong too. I don't know that I'm right, but I'm willing to say, wait a minute, let's get clear what I can promise you as a human being. And I do care about you. That's why I'm so impassioned about this. But I don't think AI cares. I think you do.
I think I have a clear answer for that. So, so I think I agree that at the moment, AI doesn't care. So it doesn't care. I do. That's right. But I think, because for me, that's a system of rules and data, AI. So I could give the AI the goal, please, your goal now is to take care of yourself. Take all information and decision and take care of yourself. So I could give an algorithm that goal to take care of itself. So I think it is possible, but at the moment, it's not the case.
Bart, what do you think?
Yeah, good question. I think we have to look a bit at, like, caring, I think, as well of empathy, and there are different forms of empathy. There is cognitive empathy, where a system is able to sort of reason and understand your emotions, and these systems will be able to do this better than humans. You have AI systems that are able to analyze my voice, my mental state. They can look into my face, look at blood streams. They can measure my pulse. They can really understand from a cognitive perspective how to behave in order to care in that sense. But that's artificial caring. That's artificial empathy in that sense. But to really turn it into emotional empathy, you need to be able to have feelings. And when you have feelings, you need to have consciousness. And I don't think that these systems will be able to do so. But that doesn't mean that we will not create systems that give us that feeling that these systems care. And 5 years ago, I talked about, discussed about these things, because I said, like, this is very dangerous when in order, like, perhaps Amazon will put the first humanoid robot on the planet that seems to be caring for you, but with the business model where you get these things for free, and then it will be able to read everything and then support you, but everything is then bought in the Amazon store, and that's how they finance then the humanoid robot as a business model, because it will hack your feelings in that sense. So it always drills down to the business model, but I don't think the emotional empathy will be there at any time. I don't think they truly care, but I think we will think that they care in that sense. So, and that's then the cognitive empathy that is caring. It's an AI artificial empathy in that sense.
Let me just insert my perspective on this, because I think I take a very different one, just to round out the discussion, and then Tom and Georg can comment. For me, AI is just as capable of consciousness and caring and virtues and vices as we are. And I say this because the position that I take on these matters is that consciousness pervades everything. The whole universe is consciousness, and everything that comes into manifest form is a function of consciousness. And the way consciousness takes manifest form, following Pythagoras, is through numbers and geometry. That's the basic building block of everything that is. And so that everything that is reducible to number. Mathematical abstractions, mathematics in space, which is geometry, and mathematics in time, which is sound. So then as we, and I think this is inherent in the comment of Yuval Harari, that as carbon intelligence begins to create artificial intelligence, we're creating complexity that, like all complexity everywhere, including our own, is capable of the multidimensionality of the consciousness that the complexity is manifesting. And so I've read, for example, that some of the AI computer these days are capable of deception. They're actually capable of deceiving their creators. I've read that the AI is getting so complex that they're beginning to outstrip the capacity of the engineers that create them to even understand what they're saying anymore. And so that the conversations that the AI machines are having with each other, as I'm understanding the news that I'm following, is outstripping human capacities to understand, because they're creating new languages that are not understandable by the human creator. And I think that that's at the heart of this conundrum, John, with the assertion that it's AI is somehow neutral and we've got to fix the humans. That's very true. We just want to look at the world, right? But I think it's also true that we have an obligation to regulate an intelligence, a silicon intelligence, that very quickly is outstripping human capacities, intellectual capacities, and is beginning to manifest those virtues and vices that we would call deception, we would call caring.
Right.
That is why Harari felt that it was the most consequential development in all of human history because of the implications of that in the very real world in a very short period of time. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that in, that other perspective, to add to the complexity of this extremely rich discussion. And John, you may want to comment, but I'd love to hear from Tom and Georg.
I want to hear from Tom, but I just want to say I'm open. Now listen, I would be defeating my own purpose if I assumed I was right about any of this, right? I'm saying we don't really understand all this now, but here's the thing. It's programmed. Somebody has put in the capacity for that AI to deceive. It's going to do it. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. These threats are real. But with that said, I'm saying that the AI itself isn't autonomously, independently creating the intention to deceive. But it's been programmed to deceive. That's why it's going to be very deceptive. And it's exactly like Bart was saying, we could get better at being more empathic by getting the feedback from these AI devices. That's totally true. But I don't think it is empathic. I don't think it feels. Now, I'm saying, let's see. I don't know. I'm open to learn together. That's what I feel is ours to do.
Yeah. So Tom, Georg, what do you think about this juicy subject?
Georg,
Does it care?
You've got your device muted, Georg.
Here we go. To me, the jury is still out. If I knew the answer, I wouldn't be convening this week. Hopefully, we know by Friday 6 o'clock the definite answer. Just kidding. We don't know yet. It seems to be really a steep learning curve for everyone involved, the AI included. So who knows how our intelligence will adjust to this as well, right? Where I was talking about, AI going exponential, but what about the humans who are now able to use the faculty of reason and intelligence way different? I mean, much more dramatic than the calculator enabled new ways of mathematics. Now this is a way thinking itself can scale. And what you said about language is really important. In these stable diffusion models, the AI understands much more shades between what a cat and a dog is. Like, it maps the universe beyond language. It knows that these words exist, but it has much finer tuned concepts, so it can generate images between a cat and a dog that would not be computable for us because we're limited by language. So this may be the great exponential abyss here, that we are limited by what we consider language. AI is creating its own language, and we don't know where it's ended. So it's going to be quite a ride. Tom, what do you think?
I guess I'm coming from a place of looking at where we have wisdom in the world. And, we historically have looked at trees, for example, as just, something that produces fruit or shade or nuts or timber. It's just this inanimate sort of thing that's there for our utility. And it's only been in the last decade or so that we've realized there's the whole mycelial network where trees will transfer various nutrients to each other to help the forest continue to grow and survive. There's an extraordinary intelligence that trees have, and the mycelial network that exists within. And there's a whole consciousness that exists there. And the Max Planck Institute, in collaboration with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, a decade or so ago, looked at measuring consciousness of rocks and other things found in nature that we in our hubris, in our ignorance, in our arrogance as a species, believe there was no consciousness there. So for me, I believe that with the silicon beings that we have invited into the world, there is a consciousness there. And to Zabina's comment, it's in its early stages of development. But it will continue to, with its own consciousness, evolve and grow. at an exponential rate beyond what we as a species can comprehend. And so I believe there is a consciousness there, and it will evolve in its own way beyond what humanity can intervene with.
Well, there you have it, everyone, the full spectrum of possibilities and perceptions. Which brings to the comment that was just brought in by great line from Peter Senge. We don't understand what we see. We see what we understand. And that's the self-limitation, I think, for all 6 of us on the conversation right now, and for all the specialists and all the people that are dazzled by what's now unfolding and are seeking to both understand and see an unfolding new possibility. It's really an extraordinary moment for all of us, and that's why we're going to be attending to this AI phenomenon as much as we can at Humanity Rising. So why don't we, I don't know, Georg, do you want to tee us up for tomorrow, Tom?
Yes, indeed, because tomorrow we will have again the pleasure to be joined by Bart, but we will have another special guest, Daniel Jeffries, and we will pick up on a subject that already emerged today once or twice, which is the infamous discussion of open versus closed AI. We will try to unpack this kind of mysterious subject that's being thrown around by legislation and the media, so that we can understand what actually means open source and what could be the reasons we do want to have open source, and even ask the difficult questions why we shouldn't maybe have open source for everything. So that's what we're going to deal with tomorrow, and looking forward to it. I'm very grateful to everyone who joined today. Thank you so much for your time. It was very beautiful to spend this time with you, and I certainly feel like I've learned a lot. So thank you so much, and see you tomorrow for part 2 of our AI Literacy Week. Have a great evening, great morning, wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.